Welcome to the Social Podcast, where no discussion or debate is off limits.
Happy Thursday, everybody. We'd like to welcome back to the panel the host of NSL on TSN and The Social's Mom Life Crisis, Kate McKenna, who is back. Welcome to my Thank you. And we are so thrilled to have him back. Also, music and TV icon Cardinal Official is here today. Welcome.
Hey, good to be here.
Oh, there's a lot happening. Listen, a new pope has been chosen. And so no doubt, we're going to wait to get all the details, and no doubt we'll be talking about it on the show tomorrow. So please make sure you tune in to tomorrow's show for that. Today, we are going to start with the news that the Golden Globes are adding Best Podcast as a category in the show beginning in 2026. What do we think about this? And it's a big deal because it's the first time that a kind of a major award show is adding a podcast category. And Golden Globes is big time. So what do we think about this move?
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, Golden Globes are big time, podcasts are big time. Like, you got to hear this stat that the Globe cited. A recent data point estimates that the global podcast audience will exceed 600 million people within the next year.
Wow.
And I can speak, for me personally, podcasts have usurped a lot of the radio I listen to, a lot of the TV, and there is this blurring of lines now between podcasts and television.
Yeah.
YouTube is actually the most popular podcast platform because podcasts these days, a lot of them are recorded for video.
1000%.
So you're seeing a blurring of lines anyway. Why not recognize the hard work? Why not recognize the production? I don't see anything wrong with it.
What do you think, Cardi?
I think what's interesting is that many moons ago, I stopped listening to music in my car most of the time, and I find it extremely calming to listen to podcasts all the time. Yeah. So this became a part of my everyday, I'd say within the last 10 years for sure. So it's like, everything from, rest in peace to Combat Jack, all the way to one of my favorites is Trevor Noah right now. His podcast is super amazing. Yeah. So I'm a big podcast person.
Yeah, you know what? I think this is a great idea, and I think the other award shows should also follow suit. The Grammys, the Emmys, because let's be real, the media landscape has changed so much. Just last week we were talking about the fact that YouTube has celebrated 20 years.
Yeah.
And I think the reason why a lot of these award shows have such low ratings is because people are not watching these shows, they're watching other things. So why don't add those categories and bring that audience in? And I also just hope that if they're going to do this, I hope that they don't make this a popularity contest.
Yes.
My fear is just going to be the Joe Rogans and Call Her Daddy. I hope they have different categories and certain criteria for you to win. Because as we know, everybody and a mama has a podcast. And hopefully, if they have criteria and there is a Golden Globe to win, people will be more conscious and more thoughtful about the content that they put out there. So I see it as a win-win. They should have done this 5 years ago, actually.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the evolution of media. Just like once upon a time, there were never Netflixes and streamers and craves in the world, and now we stream everything. So you had to really start to bring them in a very real way. Otherwise, you're going to lose viewers and never get them back. I love that you brought up what is the criteria, because there are literally hundreds of thousands of podcasts, right? So how are they going to determine who gets in? Because let's not forget, there are so many genres, just like music. There are genres. There's health podcasts, there's entertainment podcasts. And here's the thing, some of the biggest podcasts in the world, they actually blur the line of entertainment and journalism. And some of them are so big, but that doesn't mean that they are without controversy. So for example, Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett, he's one of the top podcasts in the world, and he's really, really, really big now. The problem is the BBC just did this huge write-up and investigation that the problem with his show is that he is peddling medical misinformation. Major. He had a guest on his show that said the keto diet will cure cancer. Now, you cannot have that and not have a journalist sitting on the other side who's going to challenge medical statements like that are simply untrue, and he's number one. So if he gets in as a top podcast, I'm also really worried for the rest of us.
But
I'm not going to lie.
I really think that's what's happening within not just the world of podcasting, but the entertainment business, period. Because a lot of people, we kind of take people that are popular and we take them as somebody that's credible. You understand what I'm saying? And I think that is what is a real problem, is when we have these people, they're podcasters, it's entertainment, but it's not necessarily journalism. Correct. You know what I mean?
But I think this is such a great point, but I guess, does it matter to you guys that this is the Golden Globes that celebrates the best in entertainment, not the best in journalism? Does that matter
but
to you?
I think that's why to not blur the lines is key. So, you know, I think that, are they going to do it by genre? Like, it sounds like it's going to be one category, best podcast. But you know how many we listen to just on this panel?
Yeah,
I'm sure the one, I mean, how do you decide who wins based on what criteria? You know, if it's a best actor, it's because of acting.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, what becomes best podcast? I don't know.
And that's what I was talking about with criteria. I think you make a very valid point when it comes to Diary of a CEO. And he probably would expect, if he was put in that category, that he would win. But it's like, yeah, you didn't win because you peddle misinformation. So that might help him change the way he does his show.
Point.
And that's why I'm like, the criteria is really going to matter, because if it's a popularity contest, I don't want to see Joe Rogan up there with a cigar every single year going, again. I'm not interested in watching that. Neither is anybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, make it more competitive.
I hear you.
It's true.
All right, well, somewhat related. According to a recent YouGov poll, Americans rate the 2020s as the worst decade in a century for music, movies, fashion, TV, and sports, all the things. A writer for The Atlantic is asking if we really are living in the worst pop culture era. So, Cardi, where do you stand on that?
No pressure.
I was going to say, as a crowd is moaning, and then they're like, so Cardi. I mean, you know what's interesting about the era that we're in right now is if you look at fashion, if you look at music, if you look at movies, there's a lot of recycling happening. So if you're talking about innovation, you can literally look back in the 70s and you're like, we got disco, we got this, we got that. If you look at the 80s, you remember what type of sound, what type of aesthetic. If you think about the 2020s, movies, everything is a do-over these days. Yes. Everything is a makeover. If you look at fashion, it's what used to be hip in the 70s. It's the things that we grew up on in the 90s. So maybe what it is that we don't have as much innovation now. And I think, you know, it's interesting because it depends on what side of the line that you're on, because a lot of us get to celebrate everything in these times, which makes it fun because, you know, you could go back to your youth and be like, oh my gosh, I used to wear the jelly slippers and it's cool.
Yeah.
And somebody else can put on a tux and they're like, oh my gosh, like this I remember from the late 90s, this look was cool. So it's great, but I think innovation is what we're lacking right now.
Okay.
Can I ask you something as an artist?
Of course.
My feeling is, I actually agree with this article that pop culture, for all the reasons you just said, there's nothing new and innovative and creative anymore.
Yeah.
My opinion is that because a lot of people are now just selling out. If you guys remember in the 80s, late 80s, if you were, you know, involved in hip hop culture, if you were called a sellout, that was actually a negative thing.
Yeah.
How dare you sell out to the man and do it just for the dollar?
Right.
But there was a higher purpose to your art. It was to
1000%.
challenge things. It was to battle the status quo. Today, I feel like the artist's rule is go big or go home.
Right.
Sell out, sell out, sell out. And I'm sorry, maybe that's why Rihanna has no more music coming out, because now I say this, I love Rihanna. She got her bag, and I love her for that. But as a fan of her music, where's the music? We're dying
What do you
for
mean?
the
She's
music.
still in lip gloss, baby, and underwear. She don't need to be back in the studio.
I buy the lip gloss, but she became a billionaire.
I learned a long time ago that you do not make any remarks on pregnant women also. So let's keep these till after she has the next baby.
Yeah. Mel supports the pregnant women.
I support
the pregnant women.
I haven't been pregnant once myself. This has nothing to do with her pregnancy.
Yeah.
I love Fenty, for the record. I buy Fenty. I have made her a billionaire.
Okay,
I want music, Rihanna.
No. Okay, I actually really don't like this question, because inevitably everybody who's older is going to sound like their grandparents. Back in my day, it was better. And the reality, I think, is that there's pros and cons to both. Like, I think the music from the 80s and 90s, which is that's my era, was fantastic when it came to originality, with people of different ages, with the songwriting. But at the same time, this generation, they get to choose. Thanks to TikTok and YouTube, they get to decide which artists they want. I got Pat Benatar. I like her, but there could have been another Pat Benatar if I had a YouTube to go and search her. So there's pros and cons to both.
I just want to say, like, I miss the collective. Like, I think now we don't even have mainstream pop culture anymore. We have K-pop culture, Taylor Swift culture, Minecraft culture. And I think part of the reason this feels a bit icky or not as great as the past is because we're taking everything in individually, right? In the past, it was like we had a music video channel. We'd all go see a movie on opening weekend. And now my kid listens to his playlist and his playlist only. We're not listening to things as a collective. And I think that's why it doesn't feel as good.
I know we have to go to break. But I also heard through the grapevine that maybe, Cardi, some new music coming your way also.
I heard.
Any collabos with Rihanna? Just curious.
Listen, I'm happy that I got just the one that I have. New music coming May 29th. Let 'em Out is coming. So look out for that. Unfortunately, Rihanna will not be on this one. She will be somewhere with her feet up being massaged because, you know, she's expecting another one. So A$AP Rocky clearly is not making music. He's making babies as well. So
He keeps that girl pregnant.
Yes.
Do you need to be 100% certain to have kids? All right, well, a writer for Time is challenging the idea that you either want kids or you don't. She says it does a woman disservice and that material ambivalence is quite common. So do you agree that you don't need to be 100% certain to have kids? All right, Mel, what do you think? What do you think?
You know, obviously, a man and a woman are going to maybe answer this differently because for me as a woman, I was in my mid-30s. I'd been married for 5 or 6 years, and then I looked at the biological clock and was like, guess it's time to have kids. And so, no, it wasn't because I was like, I want to be a parent. In fact, before I met Ryan, I didn't want to get married or have children. And then Ryan convinced me otherwise. He definitely said I wanted to get married. I was like, okay, well, if I want to bag this one, I'm going to, you know, lock that down. So we got married. And I think after that, he really turned me on to the idea, like, this could be father material, and I guess that means I have to become a mom. You know,
so it was because of him.
It was mostly because of Ryan first, and then what happened was, I think for a lot of women, when you start to realize that your fertility window is closing, and you start to get nervous that that choice might be taken away from you, it definitely twists your head a little bit. And when we started trying, and very sadly realized we were not going to conceive naturally, and we started to go through the fertility process, then it became a different thing. Then it was like, I want something, and damn it, I will get it. And it wasn't even just about becoming a mom. It was like, I thought this was like what my body's supposed to do, and it's betraying me, so I should just do this. And I took it on like a project. And then I will say this very honestly, of course I was thrilled when she got here, but then I just went, oh my gosh, now what? Now what? And so I love my daughter to death, but I also want to normalize for women that it's not like they say in the movies, all I wanted to do was be a mom, and it's going to be like the angels from heaven, even though I'm kind of dressed like one today. She's going to, you know, it doesn't have to be that way. I am so thrilled and lucky I have her, but it's not like the way they showed it in the movies.
And I'm curious, do men have the same feeling? Like, did you have that feeling? Were you iffy about wanting to have kids, or did you know right away?
No. I mean, I think for me, it's a totally different perspective because I could want kids all that I want, but, you know, for me, it's like I have to procreate with a woman, and, you know, that's kind of the process. But I think, what's his name? Andrew Schultz kind of normalized the idea that a lot of times it's not actually the woman. A lot of times it's the men to where his boys don't work. You know what I'm saying? And that is a real thing that a lot of men go through as well, to where they might want to have kids but may not be able because a lot of them, I don't know if you can say sperm on TV,
yes, you
but
can.
okay, good. Sperm does not work. So that is a real thing for men too.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up the partner and the sperm, because I actually think that both people need to be 100% certain. And I know there's going to be women out there, and we work with some of them, who will say, I wasn't sure, and I waited, and now I love it, and I wish I'd started earlier. I understand that. For me and my partner, we have found raising kids to be tremendously difficult and to be earth-shatteringly hard for us in the sense that we feel like we're living on a planet now that we weren't living on before. And we're slowly climbing our way back. But if I hadn't been 100% sure I wanted these kids, I think the regret would start seeping in, which is a normal feeling that no one talks about. So I feel really lucky that I knew, but I don't think it's worth playing around with. I don't think it's a risk worth taking if you're not sure, because it is difficult.
Wow. Well, it's interesting that you say that, because I have the opposite opinion, only because I've talked to, I always knew that I didn't want to have children, by the way. But I talked to a lot of women who are older than me, and they all express regret. They're like, you know, if I could go back, I would have a couple of kids. And I'm like, the majority of them have said that, and because they were kind of on the fence about it, and then they just kept on putting it off, and then when that window, something about when that window is closed, and it's no longer an option, and they bring that up to me because they were like, are you sure you don't want to have it? Because I felt that way when I was your age, and now I'm here, and I kind of wish I should have just had them. I think my kid would have been 29 by now, and I didn't do it. So I say, if it's in the back of your mind, just do it. Just do it.
You know
because
what?
the regret, I've seen people with the regret.
I do think, though, there are some adults that are not even capable of taking care of themselves.
Oh, yeah.
And as a parent, I think, honestly, like...
Those are the ones who get married and have the most kids. Please.
That's literally my point, is it's like there's a lot of people to where I'm like, who allowed for these people to become parents?
Absolutely.
And anybody that goes to, no disrespect, but anybody that goes and has to take their kids to school and you see some of these other parents, you know that we wish that a lot of those parents, I wish that a lot of you guys out there said, I am not gonna have kids because you guys are corrupting all the good children and all the good parents. So I need for all you guys to think about it 4 and 5 times before you do that.
Yeah.
Please.
It's a big discussion.
Good point.
Big.
All right, well, let's keep it moving because Vox investigated dance floors across America and found that growing numbers of club goers no longer dance when they go out. Cardi, has the dancing stopped? What's going on here?
It has, and it stopped a long time ago, and it is the worst ever. Now, listen, I noticed this. I had a show in Dubai, of all places, and we went for sound check. And I remember I went, and I was like, yo, where's the stage? There's no stage.
What?
And I was like, well, that's weird. And then I looked around, I was like, well, where's the dance floor? There's no dance floor.
I'm so confused.
A lot of times as artists, like outside of like doing arenas or stadiums or whatever, but like when you're doing shows, like say you go to the south of France, you go here, you go there, and you do these shows, it's all bottle culture. So people go out to drink, socialize, watch themselves on social media. Like, people don't go out to enjoy themselves and dance, and it is the absolute worst, especially from a performer's perspective. Because you go out there, you want to see the crowd dance and get into it and have a good time, and they're in like these booths, and this is the most that you're getting, and it's the worst ever.
I think the dancing stopped the minute that people replace a drink with their phone.
Yes.
And they become a videographer to their own life, and they're more concerned about going to the event, not to have fun, but so they can tell people on their social media, this is where I am, this is who I'm with. I'm with Cardi. Hey, Cardi, say something. People are more interested in that, and that has killed the dancing. And if you're always performing, of course you're gonna become very self-conscious. And if you're self-conscious, you know you're not gonna do? Let loose on the dance floor and sweat your wig out. That's what's not gonna happen. And that's the problem we have right now.
I sweat my wig out all the time.
I think that if you are somebody watching whatever generation and you think, where do I go to dance? Because people talk to me about this all the time, because I am still clubbing. I will be clubbing to the day I die. Then the way to do it, and you know this, and I think it kind of started after the pandemic, there are still a lot of old school parties, because the old school parties are the only ones where people are still dancing, because we remember
how good it was.
We remember what it was like to have what they call dance floor therapy. So to me, I think you got to go back in time, because today's culture, when they say, I'm going to miss out on something huge, you are missing out on something huge.
Remember the basement parties where you would lean against that drywall?
That's right. So, find the old school parties and you'll find us dancing there. That's what's happening. Anyway. Okay, someone has stirred things up on Reddit when they said that they walked out on their date because she was 15 minutes late. A little note, no reason, no text given, just 15 minutes late. So, Cardi, is the guy wrong for just deciding I'm out of here?
Listen, I was gonna say there's a couple of things. You know, I live in the greater Toronto area. With traffic, we gotta extend it a little bit.
What's the grace period?
We're not saying she can't be late. We're saying there's no correspondence. We're not saying you can't be late.
That's the caveat. Here's the thing. I need to be able to, first of all, if I'm there at 7:30 and the person is not there at 7:30 and I didn't hear from the person at 7:30, I'm maybe making 5 minutes past to where I'm like, hey, where are you at? Like, what's happening? Is everything okay? If I don't hear anything, by 7:45, I'm out. So I have to have, the thing is, especially if it's a first date and you're like communicating poorly from the first date, that's like several red flags at the same time. Like, I'm out.
Party.
See, if this was a deal breaker for me, I wouldn't have met my husband. He was 15 minutes late on the first date, and I didn't care because I wanted to be met with this. Like, if I was 15 minutes late, and we're at a Raptors game downtown Toronto, I would want him to meet me with some grace. So I'm okay with it. And then he later told me that the reason he was late is because he was going to be early and realized on the way there he was wearing the same shirt that I first met him in. And so he was embarrassed and wanted to change. That's nice. Like, if we're so worried about perfection when we meet someone, we're never gonna meet someone.
He didn't say anything?
It was 15 years ago. I don't totally remember.
Okay. So he may have said, I'll be there in a
But
minute.
even if he hadn't, it wouldn't have changed
You
my mind.
would have been all right?
Totally.
That's why he married him.
I think I kind of land in the middle of both sides because I'm the one who's always late. But I'm also really big on text. So I would text that I was late as well. But I also think it comes down to maybe what your love language is. Like maybe your love language is quality time. And under that would be things like punctuality. So if you're like, no, you show me you love me because you're on time and you're communicative. But what if your love language is like receiving gifts? And so your date's late, but they come with this dazzling array. I'm really sorry, but I was picking up these things. I'd be okay with that.
You may never get to see it.
I don't know. I don't know.
Thank you.
Right?
You may never get to see those gifts.
I'm with you, Cardi, because I think I would leave, and I think this guy was right to leave because we all know, especially if we made this date on this little technology we all have, the same one you can use to let me know you're going to be late. Because at 8:20, you knew you were going to be late. At 8:25, you knew you were going to be late. And the fact that you don't have the respect to let me know that, as you know that I'm sitting in a restaurant waiting for you, is a deal breaker for me. And I also feel like me sitting there, staying there, and waiting for you without any correspondence, I'm teaching you how to treat me, which is you can do whatever you want, you can saunter in whenever you want because I'll be sitting there and I'll be waiting, and I am not that girl. The man that I want is 10 minutes early and he has flowers and we don't have this discussion. I am reasonable. I know there's traffic. I know people can be late. I know you want to change your shirt, but you correspond with me, baby. I'm not mind reading and I'm not sitting around waiting for you, especially a first date. Because I know a year from now, this is going to be the thing that we're fighting about. I'm waiting for you again. Why didn't you call me? And I'm not doing that. I'm not doing it. I don't know, but listen, we had this discussion around the office, the most divisive conversation we've ever had. Never mind this American Pope. Everybody's up in arms about waiting for 15 minutes without any correspondence. Trust me on this one.
Need to have the communication.
Yeah.
It's a must. It's a must.
I'll tell you what else is a must. Watching as Canada's Got Talent starts to wrap up for another season. It will be wrapping its season next week, which is May 13th. And Tuesday, May 13th. Contestants, in case you didn't know, they are competing for $1 million prize.
Wow.
So, Cardi, what are you most excited about for this year's finale? This is huge.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'll tell you this. My golden buzzer actually made it into the finales. So shout out to Carson Birmingham, originally from the small island of Dominica.
Oh, we love that.
That's right.
Yes, Dominica.
So, you know what I'm saying? Like, he absolutely obliterated his audition. Like, he was so incredible. People were crying, and I want to see him take home that $1 million because that is going to go far within his family, within his island, and I think it's going to be awesome.
Okay.
That is so exciting.
Yeah, man.
Cardi, thank you for that teaser, and thanks for coming back.
Of course, anytime. Anytime.
Of course, you can catch Cardi on the 2-hour season finale of Canada's Got Talent next Tuesday, May 13th. That's 8 p.m. Eastern on City TV.
Subscribe to the Social Podcast so you don't miss a fiery debate. Until next time, socialites.